join in if they like to, so we can yeah, find some more consciousness on this big journey, you know. We just get started and the Nomad concept is definitely not what you're expecting. A lot about crazy hippie ideas and interesting theories about life and love. Main ideas I like to share with you. Why? Because we're all connected. Guess what? What has it started with? You have any ideas? I'm gonna ask a few questions around this round. Like, I'm not gonna do this typical presentation where I'm just gonna be talking. I want you guys to join the talk. That's what my idea was, more or less, so we get a bit of interaction here. So what do you think? What could come? It all started with... What was that? That was very close.
Big Bang.
Yeah! How did you know? Unbelievable. That's a good guess. So what happened with the Big Bang? Well, it just happened and time kind of stretched the whole thing out, I guess. What happened besides, well, we happened, so what happened with us? We got a lot of ideas, so I guess that was one of them. That's the mind map I was talking about. But we get into that later. So, like I was saying, blah blah. There was no separation, everything was connected in one unity. Through the time, we came to an expansion of the universe. It's only guess. I was wondering for you guys, like when you meditate, you actually think about time? Because I believe meditation is some kind of it's not so connected to time, so it's actually a bit like the Big Bang. The way. So, question. Why is time important to us? Anybody has an idea?
Because of society.
Society?
More or less.
Because it's limited.
Limited.
Yeah.
Why is it limited?
Life and death. I mean, of course you get old, and then it's limited. Yeah.
Your body gets older, and yeah. Anybody else?
It's just like the really crazy idea is to switch between parallel universes, and doing this all the time creates the illusion of time.
Right. Traveling through universe and time.
You're traveling between realities, and it creates the illusion of a linear time. It's like one slide after another, and you need to switch between the realities so you can actually perceive motion or some kind of going on.
Sounds good. Somebody else has any idea? Why is time important?
To organize things.
Do you guys believe we run on an inner clock? Like, are we ticking in a certain routine in days? I've seen a lot of different people running on different routines. Like you know, they're the active people that are always into this constantly flow where they gotta keep busy, if it's because of their work or if it's school or whatever, or if it's just the kind of personality. I believe we're very different. So have you ever experienced anything like an inner clock for yourself? Like, or did you even like recognize that sometimes or manage it by yourself? Like saying to yourself, I gotta be more easy or I gotta be more calm to just get the flow. Anyway, next question. Why is music connected to time? Does anybody have an idea?
It's about rhythm, maybe also like there's a morning and there's the evening, and the sun is rising and going down. Also in music, I think it's like the dynamic of rhythm is changing also.
Yes, we're traveling a little bit in time, I believe, when we're listening to music. We're going faster, we're going slower. I had I was spending last year, I was taking part of a medical study, and every time they came in the morning to check my blood pressure, it was about 65 BPM in the morning. You guys know what BPM is? Yes, good. Okay. So during the morning it was always like 65, going up in 1 or 2 hours around 10 BPM. So and the doctor told me the longer you sleep, the slower your heartbeat runs. So you can imagine that
What did you say, the slower? No,
the longer you sleep, the slower your heartbeats run. So for example, if you sleep 10 hours, your heartbeat will go into 60 BPM. That's a very good state to be sleeping in. And if you don't sleep very well, your heart rate just stays up because you're on stress. And it's just something that keeps your inner rhythm running. It was interesting to have this experience, to see that time is actually quite connected to your body at some point. Okay, this is already the time where I want you guys to get into some physical work here. I hope you're not too shy for this, because it's probably most of you have experienced something about energy. If you have any experience with energy, just raise your hand. Okay. Nobody else?
What do you mean, experience of energy?
Oh, energy flow, something you like. We all have some kind of energy flow. When we go into a room, we have this kind of what you call vibe or aura, or you get something you carry on with yourself. And what I want to try with you guys is, I'm just gonna leave the mic here for a moment. There's the energy ball. You probably have experienced this before.
Thank you.
Like when you put your hands together like this. You can do it while you're sitting. Just try to use your hands. Imagine you have a ball inside your hands. Not strangling your hands or anything like that. Just feeling, like imagining and feeling that there's some kind of warm energy coming out of your hands onto the other hand. And it's a bit like a magnetic field. But don't worry if you don't feel it. It's not a problem. It's just how open you are to feel yourself. if you're feeling something, what you're feeling is your own energy going from one side of the end to the other, and they're fighting each other through your hands. So I like to make a circle meditation with you guys. I don't know whether this is possible right now. Maybe we just do it differently. Get together like just in a line. So maybe we create some kind of a line here. And
Lines like this?
yeah,
Like a snake.
yeah, like a snake. Yeah, exactly. So we get a little bit like this. Just stay where you are. Imagine how the line could go on. And what we will do is from the right hand, we will send the energy to the other person, and the other person receives it with the other hand. So can I have your hand? So I will send my energy into your hand, and you will send it to her. Exactly like this. And then the same concept and so on. It's gonna be a little bit difficult because we have to find each other again.
I'm sending it from
That's
Yeah.
perfect, perfect. Everybody's so organized. This is amazing. So sit comfortable, relax. Maybe close your eyes if you'd like to. And make sure you got the connection to the other person. And just feel the energy going from one person to another. There's some studies about this, that when we connect, you can actually measure that consciousness is rising. So it's a bit like the human energy that goes through our body all the time. I can totally feel it. I don't know what about you guys. You hear anything?
Yeah.
So this is your energy that you're sharing with everybody else. Not any black magic or anything like this. This is just what you're feeling, and you're sharing your outer form, well, outer or inner form, whatever you want to call it, but it's just your energy, just to get an idea. Somebody wants to quit? For a moment, close your eyes. Let yourself flow. Let the energy go from one side to the other. Just imagine you're a river. It's like waves going up and down. Pull your body from the other person to the other. And you're just connected. Alright. Well, you got a slight idea what you got in there, the sense of energy. We'll just carry on. So this is me since I'm presenting the non-ego concept, I get to tell something about myself so you get some kind of idea who I am. I just thought it would be kind of nice to introduce myself. So this was me as a baby. This was me when I was 4 years, 5 years, 17, 19, 21 something, 23, 25, and so on, 27 in the end. So I was raised very differently than most kids. I grew up close to Saarbrücken. You know where this is? Close to Frankfurt am Main. Anyway, it's just down, not in Berlin. So my parents sent me to school. I was a kid. I really didn't want to go to school. Like, I went back from the bus station. I ran back to my place, and I was like, "Mom, I'm not going there. There's no way you can get me into school." I was holding like they were trying to get me out, and I was like, "No, this is like I don't really appreciate the system that I'm caught in right now." So I was there for like 2 years. I went to school, and I was always against it. My parents could see that I was not comfortable with the way I was like. It was not really like I was not able to fit in, but at one point I was so used to this good energy from my parents that the contrast was quite strong for me, having this routine. I was asking a lot of questions as a kid. I was like, why is this like this, Mom? Why do I have to do this? What's the meaning behind it? We just have to go there. So my parents decided to travel. So they bought a big van and we went off from Germany. So me, my sister and my brother traveled through France, Spain, and ended up in Portugal. I was living there for 10 years. I was doing homeschool, always with the idea in my head, in the back of my head, one day I might go back to school, knowing that, you know, I have to graduate and so on. And my parents were really hippie. They were like trying out everything, living on a campsite, surfing, not to worrying about life at all. So all these things, you know, from society, this used to be very uncommon for me back then. But I came back with 20 to Berlin, so I'm getting into that later. It was a very interesting contrast for me to see the world from a different perspective, as most kids growing up in normal school structure. I mean, I finished school, I got into society, I looked at all the little chapters that we are caught in this strange system, and it's just amazing how much time you can actually waste, I think. I will carry on. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the ego, since that's why we're here. The I experience, in other words, the operating system. Does anybody, like, when you read this, like, no way, that has nothing to do with the ego? Do you agree? Operating system, does that make sense? System we're running on? Self-image. I like the word self-image because I believe the ego is actually something we create. I'll go into that in a moment. This is still in German. I hope it's okay. I'm just going to translate what's important to me. I can actually read. So I think we all are caught into the system of the ego. It's what we're working with. It's what I'm speaking with. It's what I'm thinking with. It's everything that we're moving and building at some point. We're constructing and creating with the ego. Your attention leads you to the process, and it's still just in a way it's built up from ideas, I believe. We all experience different things in life, so we get a concept of what we believe in, and well, what is your experience with the ego? Like, how do you identify with your ego?
It's always as intelligent as you are. So it finds ways to trick you. So basically it hides. So it's quite hard to identify it, but the moment you do, it's like you take off the energy. And yeah.
Anybody else? What's your personal experience with your own ego? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? How do you feel about it?
But you don't have to use judgments like good or bad, because
No,
there's another
sure,
dimension.
sure. It's just inspirations to get some ideas.
This is actually a step to, I think, focus on the ego, seeing what you find good or what you find bad about yourself, but actually then abstract to that and see it from a different perspective.
Yeah, that's where we're going.
I think basically you can make it your servant. So it serves you, right? It's just about breaking the things like basically everything is kind of a program. We got programmed somewhere at some stages of our life.
I think when we experience the ego in an intense state, it's usually when we are doing something that we are not feeling comfortable with. So, for example, we wouldn't walk down the street naked. It's just not what we would do. This is very uncommon for the ego. Other people might say, wow, I saw you naked there. What kind of dude are you? Like, how can you do this? This is just wrong. Or the image of superstars. If they do something wrong, it's all over the newspaper. And all these other extreme examples. Somebody doesn't want to let go of something, and he's so on about it that there's no space to actually have a balanced conversation. I'm sure you all experienced that. Well, there's a lot about the ego, but I don't want to get into everything right now, because we could talk about it all evening. It's more interesting stuff to talk about. So, there's the other part of the ego. We're running on it's a very constant flow. We've got this idea that, when you're meditating, how many of you guys have you tried to meditate? Just raise your hands. Okay, a lot of people. That's good. Do you experience your head talking to you when you're meditating? Just raise your hands. Sometimes. So, what do you think is it when your head talks to you and you don't actually want to talk? You want to do this proper meditation that you're in, but it's not working because there's a head, there's a voice in your head that keeps repeating itself with something. Why do you think this happens?
Because you keep distracting yourself from going inside to see stuff.
You're still unconscious at that point.
But what is unconscious exactly?
It's not being the master of your mind.
By being present, present.
then your brain is just not used to not having any thoughts at all. You're used to always think something. You're used to always have input and react to that. So you're not. Meditation is a matter of training, I guess. So when you don't have training, then you always talk to them.
Anybody else? Ideas?
I think that voice is very conscious. At least my voice. It's very rational, very logical, always explaining stuff, always criticizing things around. It's, I would say when it's silent, then I go into some subconscious level or higher consciousness. But this voice in my head, I was always thinking that it is consciousness actually.
Yeah, but then
this
you are
voice.
creating the voice, and then it's not like somebody talking to you. It's something which matters to you, and then you understand what the voice is actually saying to you. When you are unconscious, you still got a voice, but you don't get the message.
But you don't control what it's saying.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned this because I think it's quite a very important thing to talk about, because there's a lot of people that misunderstand this voice that is talking to you. It might be because you're distracted of something, or your working routine keeps you to worry about stuff that you actually cannot calm down your thoughts. But I wouldn't judge those voices at all, no way. You have to listen to them and understand them. Because if you understand what's coming to you, it's actually, you can appreciate that you know that there's something you gotta think about actually. You gotta analyze and be like, okay, if it's something I need to actually work through, I gotta let it go. I gotta be able to say, I'm fine with this situation that comes to my head, and I wanna be in peace with it. So it's a bit like with psychedelics. If you do mushrooms or LSD or other things, you get confronted with your ego in a very straight direction. So the substance is more or less confronting you with everything you didn't want to be confronted with from the beginning. Like, let's say something happened in your past, and it's something you suffered with, but you weren't able to give it peace because it's something you couldn't let go at some point. So you're actually being conscious when this voice comes to your head, because it's a voice that helps you to find your own peace. It's more a question, like, there's a lot of people talking about this, so I'm repeating myself. I think it's so wrong when people just be like, you gotta meditate, you gotta be straight, and you gotta have no thoughts. I'm like this. I'm like, guys, just calm down, relax, have your thoughts disappear, and find space. Just be happy. But it's not actually that simple.
Maybe it's also like with the times between with morning and evening. Maybe it's also depending what makes sense, like on the situation. Like sometimes, like I see consciousness on several levels. For example, emotions and thoughts are another level. I think to find peace, it's good to find a balance. Like when I'm too much in emotion, then my mind can help me to reflect and get out of this. And also, but when I'm too much into my habits of analyze structures and strategies, then it's good to let this loose and to go more in the feeling consciousness.
Yeah. So, let's carry on. Or do you guys have any questions about this? What you can do around
maybe
like,
little one.
little one?
Because just as the experiment you gave us,
Yeah.
right? Something is energy.
Yeah.
So sometimes I've experienced, I'm having thoughts which definitely can't be mine.
Okay.
Like people passing through me, and I'm having like sorry for the word, like bitch,
Yeah.
right? Just like out of the blue. It is,
Where is that
isn't-
from?
Yeah, this isn't the way that I'm thinking. And I think there are like several voices. And there's one voice telling you the way. It's like a direction, like a telling you directly what you need. But this voice is like so. How's it opposite
It's
of
a bit
loud?
like you're talking about the instinct.
Yeah, your gut feeling, like your
So-
voice of your heart, right? And it's your ego it's like screaming, and your heart's like whispering.
I
Right?
think it's actually quite a. The more you practice consciousness, the more sensible you get.
Yes.
So, what comes along the way is not actually easier. It becomes more complex, and you're more sensible for different energies. And we all run with our energy. If we're unconscious about it, or conscious about it, but we all have energy that we put out in place.
Yes.
And it's just a question of us being sensible to feel what is there, but is actually not spoken. So I guess that's at least how I feel about it. When I have the feeling that something is there, but it's not taught. So you get an idea where it's from, but it's only to give you an idea. For communicating, talking on a higher level with each other.
In the past 100 years, as these super technologies have been developed
know
in
this?
the West, the smashing of atoms, the invention of radio, television, computers, immunology, so forth and so on, data has been arriving about the practices of Aboriginal cultures all over the planet. That they dissolve ordinary realities, ordinary cultural values, through an interaction, a symbiosis, a relationship to local plants that perturb brain chemistry. And in this domain of perturbed brain chemistry, the cultural operating system is wiped clean. And something older, even for these people, something older, more vitalistic, more in touch with the animal soul, replaces the cultural operating system. Something not determined by history and geography, but something writ in the language of the flesh itself. This is who you are. This is true nakedness. You are not naked when you take off your clothes. You still wear your religious assumptions, your prejudices, your fears, your illusions, your delusions. When you shed the cultural operating system, then essentially you stand naked before the inspection of your own psyche. Desmond Morris called it the naked ape. And it's from that position, a position outside the cultural operating system, that we can begin to ask real questions about what does it mean to be human? What kind of circumstance are we caught in? And what kind of structures, if any, can we put in place to assuage the pain and accentuate the glory and the wonder that lurks waiting for us in this very narrow slice of time between the birth canal and the yawning grave? In other words, we have to return to first premises. So I've been thinking about this a lot, and at first it seemed to me only a metaphor, this phrase, culture is your operating system. But because I travel around a lot and get that jolting experience frequently of, let's say, leaving London on a foggy evening and arriving in Johannesburg 14 hours later to a sweltering day in a city of 14 million on the brink of anarchy, I get to change my operating system frequently. And so I notice the relativity of these systems. And some work for some things and some for others. For instance, if you are a positivist, if you're running positivism 4.0, you can't support UFOs. Positivism 4.0 does not support UFOs. If, on the other hand, you're running your Rancha book 5.1 as your operating system, UFOs and a number of other things can get in through the door. That is what we would technically say is a more tolerant operating system, or its plug-in supports special effects denied the positivist. Well, it's fun to think this way because it shows you that you don't have to be the victim of your culture. It's not like your eye color or your height or your gender. It's fragile. It can be remade if you wish it to be. And then the question is, well, how does one download a new operating system? Well, first of all, you have to clear some space on your disk. The best way to do this is probably with a pharmacological agent. You think of some while I have a drink of water. Psilocybin is an excellent disk cleaner. You can put a lot of things in the trash and have them just disappear with a psilocybin upgrade. Other pharmacological agents that will clear your disk are ayahuasca. And of course, these are gentle clearings of the disk, which take 5, 6, 7 hours. If you're in a hurry to dump that old data and leap right into the new operating system, click on the button marked dimethyltryptamine. A compressed disk erasure will immediately be downloaded, unstuffed, bin-hexed, implemented, installed, run, and you will find yourself with an entirely different head. Now, shamans have always known, though they may not have used the kind of language I'm using here, shamans have always known this trick. What trick? It has two facets. First of all, that culture is an operating system. That's all it is. And that the operating system can be wiped out and replaced by something else. So, essentially, what's going on among shamans and those who resort to them for curing and counseling and so forth is somebody's running a slightly more advanced operating system than the customer. The shaman is in possession of certain facts about plants, about animals, about healing, about human psychology, about the local geography, about mojo of many different sorts that the client is not aware of. The client is running culture light. The shaman paid for the registered and licensed version of the software and is running a much heavier version of the software than the client. I think we should all aspire to make this upgrade. It's very important that you have all the bells and whistles on your operating system. Otherwise, somebody is going to be able to get a leg up on you. Well, what's wrong with the operating system that we have? Consumer capitalism 5.0 or whatever it is. Well, it's dumb. It's retro. It's very non-competitive. It's messy. It wastes the environment. It wastes human resources. It's inefficient. It runs on stereotypes. It runs on a low sampling rate, which is what creates stereotypes. Low sample rates make everybody appear alike, when in fact the glory is in everyone's differences. And the current operating system is flawed. It actually has bugs in it that generate contradictions. Contradictions such as we're cutting the earth from beneath our own feet. We're poisoning the atmosphere. that we breed. This is not intelligent behavior. This is a culture with a bug in its operating system that's making it produce erratic, dysfunctional, malfunctional behavior. Time to call the tech. And who are the techs? The shamans
We
are the techs.
all of us. What is your personal experience with culture? Anybody wants to talk about it? How do you feel? Do you feel like culture is doing you good? Is it doing you bad?
I think generally, for me, culture is kind of a like a meeting place for humans, like also for some people to talk, to dialogue, to reflect, and to develop something new that I didn't do for myself before. And I think there's differences in this several cultures. Like I also perceive like for me the important aspect is the ethics or the moral that the culture provides, like the values that it cultivates, like empathy or cooperation, or also dedicatedness to a community itself.
Anybody else?
I see culture as a collective memory, or the memory of society. And one way is to look at it as some constraints or some rules you have to follow, but actually it's all accumulated through many generations. And the cultures which we get when we are born and grown up is something, so the wisdom of our ancestors actually, and it's I think it shouldn't be ignored.
It's definitely our inspiration. Since we're growing up in it, we kind of have to apply and feel comfortable with it. And it's our history at some point. But I guess what Terence McKenna is talking about is you don't have to identify with your culture that you've grown up in. It's only an idea of a conception that we created through time. And you get this very straight contrast when you go into another country. You see suddenly everybody's behaving totally different, and other things are totally like they're totally okay, and things where you know you can, when you're on holiday, you can see how different people behave on the beach, you know, like in other countries, and yeah, it's just, I think it's quite obvious that the thing that we believe is most common for us is actually not so common, because it's relative in a way. So it's relative because it's common in our society, but not everything that is in our society needs to be common. What I mean is, I guess you get me. What else is there besides the ego? Any ideas? We had some energy earlier. Presence.
Can you repeat your question, please? I didn't catch.
What is there besides the ego?
Besides the ego.
Besides your self-image, what you believe you are. What is, like, if you imagine you created your whole personality in the shapes it is, and you, for a moment, you don't think about the bubble that you are in, and you just forget about yourself. What is there besides of this bubble that you created?
I think whatever you would want it to be, if we would detach ourselves from what we think that we are, like the ego, there's a lot more potential and opportunities, energy, as someone said.
So there's creativity, there's space, there's ideas.
I think there's also other ways of dealing with these contents of consciousness, like ego or like these habits or these roles that one plays. I think ego is, I see it more like a way of acting, of dealing with myself, than as something concrete, as something abstract. The concrete is this paradox, it's not logic. I don't think it's something concrete, like you said. It's just changing, like there's many aspects. And
So the ego is actually always changing
yeah,
itself.
I think that on one hand there's this kind of strategies. They have also a hierarchical. They have identified to be arrogant, to be better, to value oneself better than others. So I think this is, for me, I value the bad side of my ego. And then there's maybe also the empathic or cooperative ways of playing like with these roles. Like so I think the more free I can play with my roles, with my cultural whatever behaviors, the more free I am also to for other people to get into this world or to connect.
I totally agree to what you're saying. What's actually interesting is that the moment we talk, we take this idea from us with us. So it's actually when we are not, when we don't want to push us into the room, then we have this little moment of I don't want to be in the center of the room, but at the same time, I have this idea about myself. So that's one thing I was talking with a friend a lot about. We were having this long talk about when you change your ego system, you just change the way you see yourself in a way. So you put yourself into a different perspective than you would usually see yourself. And from that perspective, the possibility of what you are is limitless. You can be anything. You could go to some acting school and pretend that you're an actor for 20 years, and everybody would believe you if you're sincere, like if you're serious about it. But it's actually a practice that we go through, I think, every day. That's what people call, in German there's this great word, Selbstbewusstsein. I don't actually, what's it in English? I don't know.
Self-esteem.
Self-esteem. Yes.
Consciousness.
Yeah.
That's actually so interesting, right? What does it define? I mean, if we're not the one that are judging ourselves at some point, because there's always the part of the ego that says, oh, I'm not good enough in this, maybe, I might be wrong with this, and that's why I shouldn't do this, or maybe I shouldn't try to do karate because I haven't got the moves for it, or I shouldn't do tai chi because I can't be slow enough. Those ideas, you know, in fact we can do anything that we can imagine, but in the bubble of the ego, you limit yourself, and it's only you who's taking away your possibilities to do whatever you can imagine, in a way. That's the other side of the bubble, in my opinion.
There's also an important distinction you have to make, because you have like two perspectives always, like the self-image and the third-party image, like people looking at you. There's always a difference of how people see you and how you see yourself. Actually, it doesn't matter what other people see in you, because it makes only, it is only important for you. But it's a set of filters you have for certain situations.
But I think it's what you think other people see.
Yes.
Actually, not
This
what they see.
is
And
what
that's the
holds us
most-
back.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they would never see what you think they see.
Yes.
So it's a
It's an illusion, basically. It's nothing more than a
Projection.
movie. Yeah. I would say a movie in your head, like
Projection.
Yeah.
moving on.
But it's also something you put on this other person. So if someone
Yes.
comes into the room and you think like, oh, he probably thinks I'm an asshole, so you put this thought into his mind.
Yeah.
He will
Basically,
probably
it's your
think
thought
you're an
about
asshole,
yourself,
yeah.
right?
It's you projecting it on him and then him doing it on you.
Yes.
The mirror.
Power of the thoughts. They're very powerful, actually.
Also empathy, I think, is very powerful for reflection. Like, so the more empathic the more I take myself back in a way, or the more I can be open for others and maybe see also myself through their perspective, but also the other person's perspective, like how they deal with life, how they deal with their ego or with values, and I think this is very interesting. Also automatically like making my ego not so important, the more important I make the other perspectives.
Yeah, I agree. Which is basically actually what people talking about culture, people studying other cultures should do.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, who cares about my ego? I mean, why are we talking about ego, you know? Is the point. Just,
It's
just see yourself take the other eyes and see yourself with other eyes, but your eyes, not the eyes we all have in common. Yeah, so cool. I love your point of view.
It's more the observer perspective. And you can always find an observer. You don't necessarily need another person to see you through their eyes.
Yeah.
You can always take the observer position.
I think it's more easy when one is able to communicate like aesthetic. For me, it's more easy to see myself and accept myself being reflected by others than myself, because I'm uncertain in my subjectivity. I think it's I've got these strategies of projection and arrogance of my ego. I know I have them, and I think my only way out is
It's a bit like present meditation. That's also a thing. I mean, we're since practicing meditation, you have this constantly flow of the meditation that actually carries you along the day. So you're actually meditating while you're doing whatever you're doing, because you got your mind open for everything else that is en route. Actually makes things a little bit more complicated when you go into a supermarket and you see all this crazy images and all the other situations. I mean, yeah, I could count off a few, I believe. Yeah, being open for everything is definitely interesting. So here we are talking about the soul or consciousness, since we're talking about it already for quite a while. What is consciousness exactly? At one point, I believe it's censoring all your senses in a very intense way. So you're paying attention to everything that happens in your body, everything that happens around your body, and everything that happens in all the other dimensions. How does it work? How do you actually have the experience of consciousness? In fact, at least from what I wrote down there, by watching yourself closely and paying attention about what's going on in your head and where are your thoughts coming from and why do you think the way you think. Another idea was that we just wrote down, my friend, it exists timeless, which doesn't quite, make sense, but as a feeling, I feel conscious is not really connected to time so much, because it's not in the need of time. It's more about the present, and the present. What is the present exactly? We experience the present as a moment that is variable to us, and it's not about what's going to happen next. It's not like in a movie where you're waiting for the next chapter to appear. It's more about being there and seeing the surrounding. So on. Comparing with an ocean. Well, this is actually I wrote this map with a friend of mine, and it's actually quite old, and I've went through a lot of different experience since then, and I think we talked about a few things already. Any good questions about this? Yes, questions? Okay, let's carry on. Are the eyes windows to our soul, consciousness? What do you think is the soul? And if reincarnation exists, why don't we remember? What do you think? $30? Thank you very much. It's less than 30 minutes, don't worry. We're in time. And does actually still exist. Well, what do you I wanted to bring this in the room because I personally experience this moments when I look at babies sometimes. I get this very straight look on their eyes that they know exactly what I'm seeing, and they're being recognized that I'm seeing them. And it's a bit like also with animals, you get this too sometimes. You look at them and they're like, what's going on? Why are you staring at me? Like, why do you look at me like this? I can see you're seeing me, but you're not reacting. So what's going on exactly? So consciousness is recognizing consciousness. That's at least what I believe. And if you think about the concept of reincarnation, I believe that reincarnation, it's not important to remember your memories from your past life. There's a lot of theories about reincarnation, like if you watch some movies about it on YouTube, where they talk about like 1,700 cases in India, America, all over the world, where kids in the age of 4 remember their past life, but in those stories they actually remember a very brutal way of dying. So that's their memories from their past. So there was one woman that got cut off the head, and there was another. There was some story about that. Actually, there was one story about one Indian girl that remembered the streets and the names of everybody, and she could recognize all her family from her past life. It's a big story. They talked about it on the news back then, and they actually wrote a few books about it. And when that happened, they got like 9 or 10 of those special people into this situation that happened there in India, and they try to put it down from attention. try to put it very on a rational, well, just not try to make it look real, because it was just too much for society to just pop up like this. But they like the whole story about it. I actually wanted to get a video sometime, but just type reincarnation on YouTube, you will find it on the first page. It's a very interesting story about it. Do you believe in reincarnation? You had some experience that you felt there was something that you remembered or felt to be like a deja vu experience that you had? Do you remember that there was something you felt before, but you don't exactly know where it came from?
I remember I always felt really old, even in like kindergarten. I felt like I wanted to talk with the grown-ups. Yeah, but not something clear.
Anybody else?
I think it happens quite often with other people. Like, not quite often, but sometimes you meet people and you think like, that person I haven't met before, but you are sure that you haven't seen that face before, but you have felt the energy before. So I think that's one point of it. And also, I don't know, it's kind of strange, I think, but when I get like stroke, you know, just like this, I feel like I gotta do the thing cats do, like I can't do it, but I feel like I could do it, but I can't. So it's really strange. I don't know. Yeah, I really feel like I can do it, but I can't. It's just fucked up. I would like to.
Maybe you have been a cat before.
Maybe.
Anybody else had some kind of those kind of experience? No? Okay. Well, I have some animal eyes here too. At some point I believe everything is consciousness, and we are extracting ourselves into everything at one point. There's a lot of theories about some religion where they say that you gotta go through every animal and plant before you can become human. But those are theories. I don't have any proof of that for myself. I like to believe it. I think it's beautiful. But what I wanted to mention was the eyes are quite. I think they tell a lot about what is there behind the concept of ego, and I think some childs get mistreated a little bit because the parents, they don't actually see the potential of the baby they're rising. Because if you see it from the other perspective, you can actually work with your baby in a different way instead of seeing it as the baby that will still learn everything. It's actually an individual that already existed, and you can give it some more information than you would to normally. Furries. You are what you consume. Do you agree to that? Why is it so important to eat the right things? What do you think?
I think it's because it all has an impact on our body. It all is acting in a different way in our body. So it's kind of distracting our thoughts.
Okay, anybody else?
I think it's about energy. It's all about rising your level of energy. And certain foods bring your energy down. Like alcohol is really bad for your energy. And if you are that conscious, then you can decide on yourself by yourself: is this the right food for me? And does it feel good? And this is the most important.
Find your taste, basically. So the things you taste, you like to eat, these are the things you need. I think like everything is protons, energy is light. but you have to distinguish also like the food you're eating today is almost like that food. So you have to eat double the amounts if you go to a regular supermarket.
Do you believe in a spiritual background of plants and animals?
What do you mean?
For example, you grow your own garden and you eat your own potatoes, and you taste the difference between the ones you can buy in the supermarket and the one you grow yourself. Why do you think is that?
Maybe on one side the plants you get in the supermarket, they grow on that earth, but there's no minerals anymore again. And they're having fertilizers, like chemical fertilizers. And yeah, it's basically the difference that it's also coming from somewhere from a mass production. And yeah, if you have a little bit to do with plants and growing food, you have to switch places, but they always grow at the same place. They farmers.
Do any of you believe in karma? Just raise your hands if you do a little bit. Karma, yeah.
I believe in intention.
Not like the concept from the Indians where they say, well, you're poor because you have been an asshole. I don't agree to that, to be honest. It's just a matter of surrounding.
Action and
Action.
reaction.
Yeah.
It's just a physical
But
law.
yeah,
What you send out is also you give it to yourself.
so even if we're going into the supermarket unconsciously and buying some things, at some point we connect with the source of our food. So what you're eating is pure energy, and this energy runs right through your body and the whole system, and gives you this very interesting contrast to your inner energy flow, to your balance. At least that's what I believe. I think everything that we eat is energy in a way, and the more pure it is from its character, the more we get a sense for its energy, since we die without food.
But okay, of course it's obvious what is good to eat and what is not good to eat. But don't you also think that it's about what you think is good for you to eat? It's also
Another
like-
perspective would be this, you know, this Japanese scientist?
Yes.
With the water, you know?
Yeah, that's
With the water?
No.
So look at the, I don't know, watermelon is probably 99.9% water. So it's so much about the intention you put into this watermelon, because the particles in the water will form according to what you write on it, or what kind of music you play to it.
There's
or
also
you
this
think
theory
about
about
it.
water,
It's-
where we put an intention into water and the crystals change.
Yes, that's
you
Yeah,
heard about
exactly,
this,
that's
yeah?
what I mean.
That's Masaru Emoto, he died
Yeah.
recently. Masaru
Really?
Emoto. Yeah, he died unfortunately.
So I guess it's good to give your food and your drink a little bit of love, and then you will end up having a little bit of more love.
Yeah, well, try to imagine you're on a constant blessing. Like you're blessing yourself, you're blessing other people, you're just giving out blessing thoughts, right? And we are, like, atoms are containing 99.99999% of space, empty space. The rest is you can call material, which is like wavelength, it's frequencies. So now imagine your thoughts creating this. I believe in the concept of mind over matter. We're just not right there to get this control of. But
It's definitely there, because as
Yes.
soon as you look at an atom, it will behave differently than when
Yes.
you're not looking at it. So we have to be really, really careful about intention and
But there are supercomputer that runs on a very high energy level.
yeah.
We're getting into this now. It's it's fading.
Now, but we often hear these days about the power of positive thinking. Usually this focuses on what it can do for the individual. But now a Russian scientist says it can also benefit the world around us. RT's Sarah Firth looks at the science behind the claims.
Can you directly influence the world around you with just the power of your mind? Although it might sound far-fetched, a leading Russian scientist believes we can do exactly that. And using a device that photographs human energy fields, he's attempting to prove it.
We are developing idea that our consciousness is an active part of our material world. And with our consciousness we can directly influence our world.
To bridge our understanding of the unseen world of energy, scientific experiments are carried out using a technique called bioelectric photography. The assumption is that we're constantly emitting energy. Now, bioelectric photography works to capture this energy field that's seen as a light around the body, or what some people would call your aura. Discovered in the 1930s by Russian inventor Semyon Kirlian, he realized that stimulating a subject with a short electrical impulse, you get a burst of light of photons and electrons around the subject.
It looks like aura, but I don't like this word because it has some metaphysical meaning. I prefer the word energy field.
The device itself photographs each finger individually, with different fingers responsible for different parts of the body, and feeds the information into a computer to interpret. One supposed benefit of this technique is early diagnosis of serious illnesses like heart disease and cancer.
The aura.
This is a very interesting drop. Carries on right away with the aura. Now, I wanted to take a small break on this one before we go into the theories of the aura. Well, I'm sure you've seen this before probably. The theory about the hands and the energy that comes out of the hands. If you've seen it before, raise your hand. If you haven't, just let your hand down. Okay. So it's quite interesting. There's actually a movie called Quantum Communication, where they talk about this for 3 hours, about all this supernatural energy things that go on. There are like 20 people sitting together at one place in London, and they're concentrating on a plant somewhere else, far away in the world. I don't remember exactly where it was, but really like far. And they've got a camera with a long time shot, you know, what's it called? Time lapse? Time lapse, exactly, time lapse. No, time lapse is something else. Right?
Time exposure.
Long time exposure. Thank you very much. That's good. Okay, so they've got the image on the plant, and the image is just black. So the camera is totally isolated in a black room with a plant. 20 people in London concentrating on the plant, and the plant starts shining, just because they're putting their attention, love into the plant from the other place, the world. So what happens with the image? The plant starts shining, and there's a lot of other experience with it that they've been on about this for a long time in Russia, and they actually they found planes and other stuff. You should watch Quantum Communication. It's amazing. 10 minutes. Wow, that's more than enough for the hours.
In the New Age, the term aura is something that, well, is used all the time. I see it in the newspapers. I see it constantly being associated with the impact of human beings. But so little about the aura is really understood. Most assume that the aura is an energy field that is given off by the form, rather than seeing that the aura is a full expression of and a controlling agent of the way in which the form is going to work. We do not have the same auras, as you will see. The first thing to understand about the nature of the aura is how big it is. What you get to see in human design, through the mechanics of human design, is that you get to see how easily you are conditioned by another human being when that human being enters into your aura. And think about the size of auras. If you stretch your arms out in either direction from your body and imagine that they could be twice as long as they are, and you formed a sphere all the way around you, this is fundamentally the extent of your aura. Now, aura does fluctuate, but it's also something to grasp about the nature of aura is that it is not hindered by walls or floors or ceilings. The reality is that when you are standing in a room, in apartments, and they are connected to your aura, it is one of the things about entering into this process of discovering yourself is understanding how important it is to protect your aura, particularly when you're sleeping. You know, it is one of the deepest recommendations of human design when you enter into this process of the experiment of strategy and authority, that you sleep in your own space, that you protect your aura from conditioning. Now, auras are not the same. They're not the same at all. What we get to see in human design mechanics is we get to see that there are 4 types: manifestor, generator, projector, and reflector. Each of these types express themselves through their aura. If you're dealing with a manifestor as an example, a manifestor has a closed and repelling aura. What that literally means is that the moment that somebody comes towards a manifestor, that their own aura is being pushed back. It is one of the reasons that life can be rather difficult for manifestors, particularly manifestor mothers dealing with young children. The reality is that the closed aura is something that can result in, a reaction from others that really is not accurate. The inability to be able to approach the manifestor doesn't mean that the manifestor is unapproachable, but it is expressed in the aura, and you cannot change that. You can become aware of it as a manifestor, and in becoming aware of it, you can take so much of the burden of your social dynamic off of your shoulders. If you're a generator, you have an open and enveloping aura. This is the most powerful aura that we have. The generator aura, generators are the key to life on this planet. They literally generate the life force of the planet. And as such, they have the most penetrating, in that sense, of auric fields. A generator will envelop anyone that steps into its aura. This openness in the generator is also a vulnerability for the generator. That is, in being so open and enveloping, you take deeply into yourself those that you allow into your aura. And then we come to the non-energy types, the projector and the reflector. When we're looking at the projector has a specific gift. They have a penetrating aura. It is a specific gift of theirs. Their ability to be able to recognize the other is rooted in the way in which their aura penetrates the other, literally to their G-center, to their core. Yet at the same time, for the projector, because their aura is so focused, it means that they are deeply vulnerable to conditioning while they are focusing. It also means that when we are looking at the difference between a generator and a projector, we see that a generator's aura can take in many beings at the same time, while the projector aura is only designed to deal with one person at a time. And finally, we come to the reflector, and we come to this sampling aura, what I like to call the Teflon aura, the way in which the reflector tastes the world around it in order to discover what is out of place, what doesn't work, what is different. You see, type is not simply a matter of looking at the strategy and authority that arises out of the graphic on the piece of paper. It's about recognizing that your type is alive in your aura itself. And the way in which your aura operates is impacting everyone that you're going to meet in this life. In so many ways, it is your aura that is defining you as a being. It is what, in essence, the other means. To be aware of the aura that you carry. To understand what it means to be one of these types. And to take advantage of the strategy and authority that is there. This brings the great refinement in life and the transformation of the life. And it's always about the other. When we're dealing with aura, we're dealing with the way in which we connect to the other and the way we are experienced by the other. So many auras are chaotic in the way in which they operate because the beings themselves are not correct. Follow your strategy and authority and enjoy the power inherent in your energy field.
And this is a little bit strange. I wanted to bring this in because I like the idea of it as we are all being different and we run in a different kind of energy flow. So there's some people that connect to one thing and some people can do other things way better. So there must be some kind of different energy flow going on. And when I found this, I was like, this could be interesting just to bring in the room. But yeah, I'm not really like, I haven't experienced this 4 different states, but if you might, let me know. So, this is already the end. I'm very happy to be here and happy with you. And if you like, we can work on this mind map and get more ideas about the 4th dimension and stuff like this. Talk about it, visualize it maybe, do some more of this kind of unusual meditation that we did earlier with energy, or practice some energy work. I like to gather a few people. If you would like to join, we can maybe meet once a week and just go crazy on ideas, have fun, for free, of course. So, you can just, I don't have a paper. Oh, you actually have a paper? Wow. Just leave your email if you like to join the project. Just leave your email on the paper there, or your name or number, whatever you want to leave me, and I'll let you know. Okay, thank you very much. Enjoy the evening.